Good morning, good evening, or good afternoon, depending on what side of the pond you're on. And welcome to our extra special Christmas / end of the year pub extravaganza. My name is Phil Kennedy, and I'm here with Tony Robinson and Darren Woodhead. And Darren, I know we had a little bit of trouble hearing you at first because you returned way down because we didn't want to get any complaints from the Hyndburn Council. So I've got the volume adjusted way up to make sure that we can hear you here. And welcome to the show, guys.
Cheers, Phil. I think we've got to be very careful. Apparently, this guy who works for the council, he snoops around, hanging around, so he might be outside my house as we speak. So keep it quiet.
I guarantee he's not outside my house anyway, because he'd get stuck in the snow. Anyway, keep the noise down, fellas.
Well, let's just kind of give people a little bit of an overview of what we're going to talk about today. With Accrington Stanley, I mean, we probably have 3 hours worth of stuff we can talk about with everything that has been going on lately. Things have definitely taken a turn for a better on the pitch with the January signing window coming up. We're hoping to have some big news in that end of things. Then, of course, there has been some other kind of issues with the noise things and stuff like that. So I might get cheesed off later. But Tony, what was the first thing that you wanted to talk about today? I'm going to let you grab the first topic of conversation. And what's everybody drinking here? It's still early for me, so I've only got a coffee.
Yeah, I'm not on the booze yet. It's not 4:00 here, so I'm still. I have that hard and fast rule: 4:00, and then I can have a drink. So too early for me. Too early for me, Phil. But what I think. Let's just jump in with the cut runs that were and I think I talked about this in the pre-season episode we did, that I was hoping for some success in the cut runs, and I was sort of looking at the numbers as far as when we talk about a cut run, it's for two things. It does bring success on the pitch and also financially, and in the Papa John's, their next match, I believe, is away to Lincoln. But at this point, in the Papa John's, they've brought in prize money of around £80,000 is what I can gather, and the FA Cup at this point, is £108,000 they brought in. Now, if they win at Boreham Wood, that is another $105,000. So theoretically, if not putting the horse before the cart, but touch wood, a win at Boreham Wood would put approximately £293,000 in the kitty. And John Coleman has said that could help fund a striker. The problem is if you want to get a good established striker that's scoring goals, everybody else wants one of them too. So yeah. I'm not sure, and I want to get your guys' thoughts, and maybe we'll start with Darren. Is what's the chances you think of getting a striker in? Or are we just going to go with the existing lineup?
Nice to speak to you again, Tony. But I think the main we all know we need a striker. It's just a case of if they can get one in. You don't always get your targets in mid-season the same as you do in the summer. But it did sound to me, one of the last interviews I heard with Corley, that he did sound as though he identified somebody. And then I suppose you're always up against the fact that somebody else can come in and bid more money, a bigger wage, and you just don't know, do you?
No, and as I say, if it comes, it could come from the lower league. I mean, it looks like the one signing that they did, Nathan Delfonso was really a sort of I guess for lack of better words, a bust. and something that shouldn't have, they'll probably regret doing because it didn't pan out whatsoever. But, I think that's something that we will keep our fingers crossed and hopefully, brings in his target. What do you think, Phil?
Yeah, it's really tough to find a striker at this point of the season because, like you said, anybody that's out there that's doing well, everybody's going to have their eyes on them. The other thing that you have to look at is trying to get somebody brought into the system, learning the system. I do know that some people had mentioned to the possibility of Offerandi Zonzala coming back. He's a guy that obviously knows the system, and certainly I wouldn't be opposed to bringing him back. I do think that possibly as an impact player that, maybe he could help out late in games. I don't think that he was enough. But another one that was kind of mentioned to me was Josh Wood's brother Connor from Southport. Apparently, he's a guy that Coley has an eye on. I don't know what's going on with there, but that was one name that was kind of mentioned to me through the grapevine. Well,
I think that Zonzala, the only thing I would say that I'm not really sort of thinking that's a possibility or would be something that I'd be in favor of. The problem with him is that with the winds that are blowing in the over the Clayton end in the wintertime, that he'd get blown over in the penalty spot. That's the only good I could see coming out of that. We might get a penalty if he gets blown over.
There's more chance of me starting. There's more chance of me getting the game than him coming back.
Yeah,
I'm really only addressing what some other people had brought up, and he was a name that came up on social media.
Yeah,
like I said, he's a guy that if you got him in and it didn't cost us a whole lot, just to have him on the bench for the 75th minute.
No, Phil, no, I'm not on board with you on that one.
Yeah, and I think the other one that's obviously been mentioned, and he may be out of our price bracket, is Cole Stockton from Morecambe, who's he's a good player at this level, experienced, about 28, 29-year-old. He wants to move. I think Fleetwood were in the box seat to get him at one point. He seems to have down tools a bit like our friend Dion Charles. So there's been a bit of similarities there, I think. So which has put people off, but. He can play, that guy. He does. Well, for me personally, he fits the bill. But whether he's on the radar of John and Jimmy, who knows?
One thing to keep in mind is that Matt Lowe may be getting back as soon as March. So I don't know how much we could expect to get from him coming off of that kind of an injury. It was obviously a pretty major surgery. It was definitely something that was affecting him before. But really, after that interview, it left me extremely encouraged because Tony and Darren, I don't know if you guys recall, but at the beginning of the season, the thing that I kept saying about Lowe was that he always seems to be able to get in the right spot, but the finishing just wasn't there. And then when he kind of said, well, yeah, I haven't been able to kick through the ball since training. I said, well, that kind of puts it all together.
Well, I think from Matt Lowe's point of view, I think he will be an asset, but I don't think he will be until next season fully. On the Stockton one that Darren mentioned, I think he would fit the bill. And he's Morecambe don't score goals. They're the bottom of the division. Does he want to jump ship and come to Stanley? Because I think obviously that he's better odds of staying in the division and moving up in the division would be with Stanley. But that might be just something that's just not in the cards. But we'll wait and see. I like that thought. I like that one. I think he would certainly fit the bill for Stanley. But as I said we'll wait and see.
Yeah, and he's a Liverpool lad as well, so that might help.
Yeah.
I mean, that's always something that I think John Coleman tends to connect with players from the Liverpool area. I mean, I'll tell you, the most important thing is that whatever we do, that we find a way to stay up in League One, because one of the things that this just kind of jumped off the page at me. I was doing a little bit of research on Boreham Wood, who, of course, are our next opponent in the FA Cup. They're currently, I think, 8th in the National League. And it just really, one thing that kind of jumped out to me was just seeing how many teams that were in League One just a couple seasons ago are in the National League now. Southend, of course, is one that jumped out at me. But what really, really surprised me is if you go all the way to the bottom of the National League table, in last place you will find Scunthorpe United. I mean, this is a club. In 2011, they were in the Championship. I think 2018 they were in League One. Scunthorpe, that's a pretty big club that's looking at possibly getting relegated to the 6th tier. So I mean, it just really, when you look at that, it really does get scary when you see how fast things can go south if you get a relegation.
I think, Scunthorpe potentially, if they did drop into the 6th, they'd probably be the biggest club that have ever played in the 6th tier. But you can, and on the other hand, you have plenty of traditional non-league clubs, probably like ourselves, who are all fully embedded into the Football League now. So it just makes you think about sometimes we're going to come on to how clubs run and where we are off the field and stuff like that later. But, if you just get your finances a little bit wrong and you've got all those overheads, it's a tough one to get out of, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think when you can use the same example in League One for the number of former Premier League teams that are in League One. What you're mentioning, Phil, is just at a couple of steps further down. But I mean, that's the beauty of promotion and relegation. And you do when non-league teams traditionally, like Stanley was for so many years, take a position in the Football League. Somebody's got to go out to take, so you can take that position. And then it happens. Every year. And I mean, you look, Rochdale could be going out of the league. There's some big team, some well-known, when I say big teams, they're well-known, well-established Football League teams that, that drop down. That National League is there's some big budgets in those, the National League. And I don't think, when I was talking about playing at Boreham Wood and winning, the next round, that's not a given, and you're going to need, and that's what Coley will do. He'll put out his best available team.
That actually brings me to something I wanted to ask you about, because one thing I was noticing is the Boreham Wood match in the FA Cup is January 7th. And just 3 days later is the Papa John's Trophy match where we visit Lincoln City. With those two matches only being 3 days apart, you have to think that they're probably not going to have all the same lineup. Which tournament do you see him putting the stronger lineup? I mean, to me, it's so tough because obviously the FA Cup is the bigger tournament. But then the Papa John's is the one that we actually have a chance to win. So, I mean...
Yeah, it's a difficult one, that, Phil. It's 50-50, isn't it, really, for different reasons?
Yeah.
Possibly the FA Cup may just edge it because of the prize money and potential for the next round. There's going to be a lot of big clubs in the next round, isn't there? A good chance of getting a big draw. It could really make our season and set us up for a few years. It's what everybody wants, isn't it?
Yeah, but the Papa John's, on the other hand, that's our best shot at Wembley, which I know that's...
Yeah, and I think, there's always that talk of getting to Wembley, but then this is probably one of the best chances to get into the fourth round for a few years. And the money is the big reward, and there's a possibility of TV exposure as well. But I think he's going to put out a strong team against Lincoln as well as he does against Borehamwood. Once a team is when he's winning with a squad, John has a tendency to stick with the same lineup. So I would think he will start with a strong lineup against Borehamwood, and if they can get Touchwood a lead in the first half where they can maybe make substitutions, he'll probably look at that and rest them for the Lincoln match. I think he wants to win both, obviously, but I think the FA Cup
really, really tough stretch. Just kind of looking at the whole.
Well, just think, Phil. There's been some game, a couple of games have been postponed, and the players are going to be somewhat rested. So I look at the Lincoln match because when we look back in 1st of November, I think it was when they went to Lincoln, and up till during the time I was there in October, basically they were leaking goals, and from the Lincoln match on, they really, really have changed that around. So I think they're going to go into Lincoln with some confidence. But I think the goal is to win Boreham and then go Borehamwood, and then and come back with a strong lineup for the Lincoln match. So I see him putting out strong lineups for both.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a really tough stretch in general because in addition to those 2 cup matches, you've got Derby County at Derby on January 2nd, and then Bristol Rovers coming to the WAM on January 14th. So you've got 4 matches in 12 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, one other thing to consider as well, if we're talking about new strikers, it's highly likely that whoever we get is going to be cup tied as well, isn't it? So we're going to have to, we're going to be going with the who we've got now in those games, those cup games, more than likely.
Yeah, now he's Doug Tharm. He's cup tied for the FA Cup, but can he play in the Papa John's?
He already has.
Yes, he has.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, yeah. So there you go. There's one change they can do, Phil. The one of the things I put down on sort of a list of talking points was a couple of things, really. One was our player of the year so far, and the other was our favorite episode, because this is actually, Darren, correct, it's 24th episode that we recorded in 2022, and I think we've had the volume has been less, but I think the quality has been really, really high. So I think one goes with the other, and there's been some really tough choices to pick. But anyway, I'll go last. But Darren, do you want to go first with your favorite episode?
Yeah, I think the obvious one is Chris Grimshaw, isn't it? I think it really resonated with people, that story. The amount of listeners we had, absolutely, thousands of people listening to that. So, I mean, it was a great story. He's a great guy, and it just all around, everybody enjoyed it. But going for one, aside from the Grimmy one, I think Chris Turner, I really enjoyed that chat we had with him. Again, he was a really good guest, as they all are. But how he spoke about life after football and things not working out and the pressures and starting a new career is just an intriguing chat, wasn't it?
Yeah, I thought, Chris Turner is one that I enjoyed, and the like you said, the not only the pressures on him, because when he took that time off and sort of went away with his mates and put some weight on, and he talked about the pressures even he can see coming along with kids in the academy, and they're watching people like his son, and it's only 4 or 5 years of age, and the pressure. So that I think he brought a different perspective to what we know goes on, and I thought that was a good one. And yeah, you can't the Grimshaw one, Chris, is just we'd have to almost take that out of the running, because I think each one of us would pick that as a favorite, because it was so heartwarming and so he just coming out of the rehabilitation and what it's led to with and Darren, you were involved in the walk there, sponsored walks, and some funds are going to help with Chris's cause. So it kickstarted a lot of things. So for that, I think we'll all agree, but that is by far the best episode not only this year, but of our entire library. But yeah, I like your picks, Darren. What about you, Phil?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, with that episode, I mean, it's by, I think, 4 or 5 times over our most listened to episode, if not even more than that, and for great reason, because, I mean, this is, something where we're telling a story that's so much more important than football. And we did have several episodes like that, which is something that I'm really proud of. But one that I'm going to pick that I think is really maybe our most important episode from a football standpoint is the last one we did with Matt Lowe, because just, getting to know him, find out about his life and his personality and, everything he went through with 7 years at Brackley before getting into Football League. And then, kind of finding out what he went through with the injury earlier this season. It really, I think, is something that, a lot of people, if maybe they were down on his play earlier in the year, will help people to see him in a new light and really be excited about the kind of player that we're going to have when he comes back.
Yeah, no, good shout that, Phil. I really enjoyed listening to that with you guys, and it just made you realize you see a player on a pitch, but you don't know the story behind them, do you?
No, and I think this is the we'll go into touch on this afterwards, is the social media aspect and how it can have negative effects on the team or players. But just going back on the I enjoyed that one too, Phil. That was he's getting good downloads now on that episode. But with the Chris Grimm show, we're still getting people tuning in to listen to that. So one of my thoughts I thought we'd do on a Throwback Thursday coming up. I probably will post the 3 of our picks for best podcast of the year, and we'll give them another push out. Now I had a couple. And I knew I wanted to sort of try and stay away from the obvious ones. I have 2, and I really had a tough time picking between them. But my second, I'll go with my second choices, and that was the one in February with Peter Marsden, Peacemaker, Matchmaker, and Painter. I thought his insight, and he filled in a lot of gaps and behind the scenes and at the chairman level and the financing of the club. I thought that was really interesting, and I thought he was obviously he is a well-spoken individual, and he did a tremendous job in that one. So that was one of my favorites. But I'm going to go with one that was a little different for us because we did it on Zoom, and that was the one with David Earl, the actor from several Netflix series. We reached out to him because we were playing Exeter, and he came on, and I thought his responses, you'd ask him a question about the history of the club, and he'd say, "I have no idea." He didn't sort of use cliches or BS or anything like that. He just come out and said it like he no filter on him, and I thought I really enjoyed that, and we had a lot of laughs doing that. So that was my favorite.
Yeah, another good shout. I really enjoyed that with David Earl. It was good fun, wasn't it?
Yeah, those were both excellent, and especially the Peter Marsden. That definitely would have been one of mine if Tony hadn't already picked it. Just because one of the things that I like about this show is the fact that, especially with Darren's Legends series, that we're able to tell the history, and I just think that was an important puzzle piece and maybe a time in history that we hadn't really covered quite as much. So really good to have him on the show to fill in that piece of the story. I'm going to go ahead and pick episode 253 for March, Shot Saving Toby Savin, as my second favorite. With Toby, I think he's a guy that at this point, he's really become kind of a mainstay with Stanley. This is his I want to say third season with the first team, and just hearing his story and hearing his time with the national team and things like that. I mean, he's a guy that he's every year it seems like he has somebody that comes in that it's maybe from a bigger club or something to compete with him. And he just keeps seeming to come out with the job.
Yep. Some good shows.
As I say, it was a tough year to pick, and I think because, like we said, there was not the volume. Some good player interviews. Mitch Clark, I enjoyed. Toby Savin, like you said. Matt Lowe was just refreshing. And also, I really
good too.
I was just going to say I really enjoyed Doug Thorne because his insight and his studies that he's doing off the pitch. I mean, that he's going to go places. Is that lad? And also, we got to get his English flag against his name. He's got the Welsh flag. When we asked him where, he had no idea, and so we should see if we can get that changed. But let's jump into our player. This might be a tougher one. Our player of the season so far, starting from obviously starting from beginning of this season in August. Who wants to go first with that one?
Right, I'll jump in with that. So,
yeah, Darren, go for it.
So we're going for the best player so far this season, yeah? Right.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Few contenders for me. Ethan Hamilton's playing well. Mitch Clark. Doug's played well. But I think I've got it down between two people. Either Liam Coyle, who I think is getting better week by week. Watching him at close quarters, you can just see his maturity in his game now from last season for me. And Ivy Rogers, and I can't really split them between those two. Ivy, just because of his goals, is probably catching the eye, but all round he's been excellent. He came, we obviously lost Ross Sykes, then we had a couple of injuries as well at centre half, and he's just come in, and I think he's just come of age really as a player.
I wrote down these names of the player season so far. And I wrote down, and they're not in any order of who I think, but I wrote down Sean Whalley, Liam Coyle, Harvey Rogers, Mitch Clark, Ethan Hamilton, and Doug Thorne was the last name I wrote down. I know what you're saying about Harvey Rogers, and in North America they seem to like, and I know when I coach, they always like to have an award for the most improved player, the one that sort of you didn't expect what you're getting out of him at the present time, and Harvey Rogers would definitely have to be in that category. So I'm going to give him most improved. I think Sean Wall has been a really bright signing, and I mean he's ageless and he just runs and he gives everything he can on the pitch, and he's really bought in and playing for the club. So I can see the passion that he has. But I'm gonna go with one of my favorites, and that's Mitch Clark. I just love the way he plays that right back position. I think if he's not the best right back in the league, he's in the conversation. And also, I think as a tackler, he's the best I've seen in a while. I mean, a winger goes by, he might have a yard on him, and then you think the wingers think he's going to get by, and then he lunges in and gets the ball and makes the tackle cleanly, fairly. So I'm going to go with Mitch Clark just because I think he's really he got it. It took a while to get in the team, but once he got in, he's one of the first guys on the team sheet.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I absolutely agree with everything both of you guys have said. And basically, every player that you guys have named so far has had an important impact on the team. And it really is a difficult choice because there are so many guys that really have contributed in a big way. Not necessarily one guy who has just stood out above and beyond. I mean, certainly, Sean Whalley, Ethan Hamilton, Doug Thorne, those are all guys you have to mention. But to me, it really came down to two names. And the funny thing is the two names were actually the two guys that you guys picked, which were Harvey Rogers and Mitchell Clark. And to me, it really is those two guys that are just maybe a cut above everybody else in the way they've played this season. And what really has swung me and made me make my final decision of Harvey Rogers as my player of the year thus far is looking at his stats in terms of plus-minus ratio. He has the best plus-minus ratio on the club of anybody who's played significant time. I've also noticed that when he switched from left back to center back, that really has kind of coincided with Stanley going from struggling on defense to having a bunch of clean sheets. So I really think that his move to center back has been a critical part of Stanley's recent success.
I would have. I had to take a point off for his goal scoring celebration. I think, but he's stuck with it now. He has to do that. But it is. I'll use the word lame, but it's very sort of. It's up there with the Peter Crouch robot routine, if you know what I mean. So what about highlights of? And I put down match for 2022, but it can be this season if you want to go with that, or if you got something else. But I was just wondering what your match of 2022 is, or your personal highlight of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I started looking at that, and I started looking at the stats for this year, and it highlighted what a tough period it's been, to be quite honest, Tony. When you started looking at it, we've only won 2 home games this season at home. We won 5 at home at the back end of the previous season, but most of them were against teams who you won't expect to win, but you think you're in a good chance of winning. So Morecambe was a good win, obviously. You always enjoy that because it's a local derby, but it just illustrated to me that how difficult the whole thing being in League One is now becoming. And I think it's just there's so many things stacked up against Accrington in terms of finance. You can't fault anybody. You can't fault the players. You can't fault the chairman who's put his money in. We've got a good manager. We've got good players. We just haven't got the resources to operate at the top end of this table, I don't think. It's just seeing how we're going to do it just seems to be getting more difficult. I'm not being pessimistic. It's just being realistic. It's a real tough ask.
Yeah, I mean, it really is, because like we've talked about earlier, I mean, how many big clubs with bigger budgets are in leagues even lower than Stanley is?
Yeah, and you look at the start of the season. Obviously, we lost 3 good players there: Ross Sykes, Colby, and Matt Butcher. Straight away, we've lost 2 of our senior defenders. Good quality defenders. So we've lost 5 people straight away, haven't we? So you talk about doing a job with your hands tied behind your back. It must have been a nightmare for John and Jimmy to navigate their way through, even to get to this point. And thankfully we're not quite in the relegation zone. We have picked up recently. They've shown most of the season they've played well, to be quite honest. You can only play as with the squad you've got, can't you? And if you haven't just got that star quality, what do you do next?
Well, I think this is we talk about. We'll just touch on the social media in a minute. Is how there was a rough spell there of people saying negative things about the coaching staff or the team or what have you. But anyway, it's funny you say that, Darren. I didn't really think about when I was what you said rings true about picking the match of your favorite match of the season so far. And I looked through it and nothing jumped out. And I thought that's because obviously the struggles that they've had. But from a personal point of view, it was the Exeter match, I think that for me, and that's the reason I say that is because that was my first match back to see Stanley, and it was a nothing draw, and Sophie there asked me to pick the man of the match, which I thought was, I was honored to do that, and they recognize what we as a group are doing for the club, and also recognizing the fact I traveled back to see the team, and I thought that was a big thrill for me. But
absolutely,
and I think well, it was nothing as I say, but it was and that's where the match where I Doug Tharm made his debut, and I thought he really did an outstanding job coming in, and he has since, So I think the Lincoln match was another one. When they drew that one, that was an important result. But for me, I'm going to go with the Exeter match anyway.
Yeah, just on one point on that before I go over to Phil for his. So we've just time to get one more in this season, haven't we? One more game. So maybe that's the one that's missing from this season's CV. If we can beat Barnsley on Boxing Day, that'll be the first big team I think we've beaten in 2022, so let's fingers crossed for that.
Well, I think last time we picked one of the, I know it was a year ago when we did this, I think we both picked a Rotherham match when it was in Boxing Day, and I think Stanley beat Rotherham with a late goal, and that was, so it should be a good crowd and a good atmosphere, and Barnsley's in good form right now, but there's nothing to say that Stanley can't win that one. So anyway, Phil, sorry I didn't you
oh yeah, no, like you said, we're going to be well rested too. I think that partly my blame, I had made some kind of a comment about we don't have any games in hand like we normally do, and then suddenly we had to get postponed, so I'll just keep my mouth shut in the future. But interestingly enough, I also had a draw as my match of the season, and that's the Burton match, where it ended up with a 4-4 draw. To me, just getting the 2 goals in stoppage time to end up salvaging a point, it really showed a lot of heart. That was a game where we could have kind of just rolled over early and said, it's not our day. But fighting back and getting that point, I mean, that to me showed a lot about the heart of this club.
Wood scored at 90th minute. Longello scored at 96th minute.
Yeah. So that was it. It was just, to me, that after we got down early and then came back and got a couple goals, and then they scored the 81st minute, and I just thought it was over. And to me, for them to come back and get 2 goals in injury time and salvage the point, that was huge early in the season. So Tony, I understand you had a couple listener comments sent in.
Well, yeah, we got a nice comment from Wayne Shuttleworth, who is a hardened Stanley supporter. He goes to home and away and takes his daughter Libby to the matches. He's put a lot of miles on, and one of the highlights he said was, and he goes back, he probably struggled with this season too, because for a highlight of the year, he went back to April 2022 with the Sheriff Nottingham's 94th minute winner as a high, and also believe it or not, he put down with his trip to Forest Green when it got rained out with the flooded pitch, but it was his daughter's birthday, and people at the Forest Green ground put a little party and cake on for his for his daughter. So he said, he met some great people and not a wasted trip. So I think that's something that says a lot, because it's a highlight that's around the football, but not to do with an actual match. And the low was the game at Fleetwood. He said in October, he thought that was a low. Off the pitch, he said the new facilities, making new friends and being welcomed at Stanley. And that's, I think we all echo that. And a high of spending time with his daughter and bonding over football, which is I think it's just a great story. And is another new fan for Stanley and his daughter. So we also heard from we also heard from our good friend Bumble, David Lloyd, who said highs were reading. I'm not sure how that has to do with the football, but he said reading, listening, watching every match, every week, the fortunes and misfortunes of the club. And lows, he said the present own goal scored by members of the Hyndburn Council. So I'm not sure what he's referring to. Do you have any idea on that, Phil?
Well, it might be something that has me a little bit cheesed off. And I don't know, there's two things that I'm very passionate about. One is Accrington Stanley. The other is independent music, because I think that, independent music, local bands, local artists are just an important and dying art form. And it's something that, I've worked with a lot of local bands over here in the Phoenix, Arizona area. And it's something where we run into is that bands just have a difficult time finding places to play. Because these venues, whether they be pubs or whatnot, they want to have the band, but then these cities will have noise ordinances and things like that, or they won't give them their license. Even though I know there was this one venue that had been having concerts for like 25 years, then all of a sudden they just no, we're not going to give you the license anymore, and it's just people with a bunch of sticks up their butt that, can't have fun. I mean, I looked at the list of the bands that Accrington was planning to have in at Coley's. I mean, this wasn't like thrash metal or, a bunch of explicit lyrics or anything like that. This looked like, they were having like some Beatles and Rolling Stones cover bands, I think there was like, Oasis cover band, stuff that everybody likes, can come out and have a good time. And, Darren, this is a question I have for you. Is it fair for me to say that without the Accrington Stanley Football Club, there would really be no reason for anybody outside of Accrington to visit the town?
Yeah, I think it's a fair comment. It's got a town, with its issues. There's Coley's Bar. It's a fantastic setup now. It is bringing people in from outside of the area for different events. There's nowhere like it, not in the surrounding towns as well. It's a top class facility. So, I mean,
let me ask you, I mean, in terms of, you live there. So in terms of like proximity and things like that, I mean, is this where the Coley's pub is backed up to somebody's backyard, or is this just, the kind of thing where, people just want to complain?
Yeah, I mean, I've been having to think about this, and I don't know all the ins and outs. I don't know all the history. I don't know the individuals involved in these complaints, but there are houses around there. There's always been houses around there. I mean, it's for the last, 3 years, they've had bands playing in marquees all day and after the game and all sorts of noise, not for long periods. And it's just bands playing music for a while. And I didn't know of any complaints. There may have been a few, but from my point of view, there's a couple of venues around town that are similar to this, and they've got houses around them. Tony will know these. There's a pop club in Accrington. There's Oswald Twistle Civic Hall where there's groups on and events on all the time, and they don't get any hassle. So I just think...
So is this the council just picking a bone with the club for some reason?
I just can't work it out, to be honest. I mean, they've said they want one event per month, and it doesn't go on till past midnight or anything like that. It's all, like you said, Phil, it's not like heavy metal bands. It's just tribute bands. And I think they had an ABBA tribute band. I mean, that's not going to keep you awake through the night, is it?
Yeah, like Oasis seems to be the most...
Can you imagine getting your license yanked because you had an ABBA band in?
Yeah, it's just ridiculous. It is. ridiculous. I'm just hoping somebody can see sense and mediate between the two parties, because obviously something silly's gone on. I mean, there's some. I'm not a big fan of politicians by any means, local politics as well as countrywide. But there's some decent people involved around the council, and even if we get like Murray Dawson involved, Miles Parkinson, if somebody should be able to just get everybody sat down and thrash out something that works for all parties. Surely, to God, in the problems we've got in the world, an ABBA tribute band, Oasis tribute band once a month. It's got me cheesed off.
Yeah, I get where Andy's coming from. I mean, he's trying to do good things for the community. He's putting his own money into this and saying, okay, I've put all this money into bringing something nice to the community. Now I needed to get something out of it, and now they're just kind of standing in his way. And I feel like it's tax money and things like that the community's ultimately going to be missing out on.
It's just, there's people who work at these events as well. There's people who bar staff work behind the bar, and they're not going to get a wage. They're not going to, they're stopping people earning a living as well.
Yeah, and the benefit, the area, Hyndburn Borough, Accrington, and all the surrounding area, and businesses and things like that. I think there's something missing there, like you said, because it's such a benefit that you would be, as a council, you would think you would be encouraging development within your town and community to build income and the commercial presence, and that's what Andy Holt's done. And I hope they get sorted out, because you get to a certain thing, and it's the same thing with about social media. You can get to the point where you just the straw that breaks the camel's back, and then something happens and it gets off the rails and you can't go back. But that's
Andy seems to be off of Twitter, at least for the time being, and I'm not sure that that's a bad thing in the long run, because as much as I like the transparency and everything, I think that one thing that you can run into with Twitter is he'll put out some very long tweets, and maybe a 10-part tweet, and I think you run into a lot of where people will just kind of clip one sentence out of what he said, take that out of context, and then it just ends up turning bad for him. And I think that in some ways that it could ultimately end up taking away from all the good that he's doing. So social media is toxic.
I think it just opens him up for, and you get these individuals from other clubs that want to take a shot at Accrington Stanley. I mean, there's, for every person that takes a shot at them being a tin pot club or a small club overachieving, there's 10 people for every one, or maybe more, who have an experience at Accrington Stanley when they come to a match there for with their club. They go away and say it's one of the best experiences that they could have, and the compliments that are given to the staff about the staff, and experiencing firsthand, I can concur with that. So I think sometimes being transparent on social media, sometimes it's sometimes best to take a break. But I think some of the shots that the team got in the fall was a bit over the top, and
I mean, sorry, Tony. Yeah, I mean, for just jumping on that, and I think there's just reasons why your likes of John Coleman won't go on Twitter, for instance. And I think if you're in a position like Andy is, I don't think you've much to gain, to be quite honest. I mean, because the majority of what he puts out there, most of it's correct, but you've always got people who are going to want to have this. They want to get themselves in the limelight. They want to have an argument with you, and I think everybody's been caught into that trap of having a bit of an argument with someone on Twitter in a way that you wouldn't do in person. We've all been guilty of that, and I think Andy's got embroiled in it, and I don't think it does the club that much good, to be honest. I think when that becomes the bigger story than the actual football club, it's counterproductive. So I think he's better off staying away for a while and see if that works and get his message out. I mean, they've got a media department. He could do interviews. He can do his own podcast. He could release information in another way that's not going to wind everybody up.
Yeah, I mean, I think another thing to keep in mind is that sports finance, or kind of the money end of sports teams in general, is something that everybody has an opinion on and nobody understands. I mean, everybody has their opinion on, what players should be making, what stadiums should be financed, all of these, and these are all uneducated opinions. I laugh at what people are saying half the time because they just don't understand finance. And when you're arguing with somebody who is illiterate on the topic but still has an opinion on it, you're never going to get anywhere.
Yeah, some of the comments about the team and the results, and it was mind-blowing, wasn't it, early on in the season?
Yeah, I mean, I can always understand questioning a manager's tactics and decisions, or, even saying, who else is out there that might be better. But I mean, like I said earlier, I would have to see John Coleman at least see a team all the way through a relegation before I would even think, well, maybe there needs to be a change.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen.
No.
So I think we're safe fans.
Just before, the one last thing I wanted to sort of get was see about what our Christmas wish or Christmas present would be for the club. But before we do that, I just wanted to acknowledge, like, when I was over there, and a lot of people while I was at the match would come up and make comments about listening to our podcasts, and it even happened a couple of times in the pub in Great Harwood, where I had a couple of people come up and ask me about and talk to me about the podcast and the work we do. So thanks to everybody for supporting us, listening to us, and I'll just start then with my wish for not only wish for a good cup run and a big team in the fourth round at home, but I don't see why we couldn't do it. I'd like to see a winning streak of 4 or 5 matches, just to get us into that mid-table and away from that bottom grouping. And I think it can be done. It's in the club. So that's my Christmas wish for the team.
Well, I think my Christmas wish for the team, I was tempted to wish for a trip to Wembley and a Papa John's trophy, just because that's kind of one of those things that I really want to see. But, I'm ultimately just going to go with another season in League One, because that's the most important thing.
Yeah, I agree with that, Phil. Mid-table, let's get a few wins, get up to mid-table, comfortable mid-table, and then anything in the cups is a bonus. If we can get to the fourth round and play a big team, and I think that'd be some recognition for Andy Holt, and to get some money back. Imagine if you played Man City or Man United, and what the money that'd bring in as well. That'd be some. I think the people who've worked hard at the club and deserve a day out like that.
Yeah, I think that's.
I wonder. So if Accrington were to play Liverpool in the cup, who does Coley root for?
Yeah,
well, I know his paycheck tells
he wants to win. He wants to win everything.
Yeah. That's. I think that's checked off my items. Anything you guys wanted to chat, or have we missed anything?
Oh, I think we've covered a lot of topics there, guys. I really enjoyed the chat as always.
Yeah, I just want to thank you guys for another great year, and look forward to a great 2023. Wish a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and a fantastic New Year to our listeners and to the entire Accrington Stanley family.
Agreed. Yep. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, all the best, good health to everybody. to you two gentlemen and our listeners. And it was great to have a pint face to face with Darren and meeting up and spending time with him. So I'm looking forward. That was one of my. I should have said that was my highlight of the year. Oh. Anyway, I'm looking forward to doing.
Yeah, you never mentioned my barbecue skills, did you?
Well, I didn't.
Never got a mention in the season's highlights.
Well, because I thought, well, if I say that, people will be coming, be flooding over your house for barbecues. But I'll tell you what, Phil, he mixes a mean gin and tonic, and he does a hell of a barbecue. And it was a great night at the Woodhead residence.
Yeah, it was.
I cannot wait to finally make my way over and definitely.
Yeah, get yourself over, Phil. I'll get the kebabs marinating.
You can even buy, and this is one thing I just found out after I left, but at the Bowling Brewery in Clitheroe, you can buy a mini keg, which is about 6 or 7 pints in it of Hen Harrier. So it's a nice little mini keg. So next time I'm going to Darren's, I'm going to take one of those with me.
Hey, that sounds like a party there. There's one way we always finish up. So on 3, 1, 2, 3. On Stanley!
On Stanley!
Cheers, guys.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers, fellas.
Bye.